Congratulations, everyone. Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Edjuenka. We have another informative program for you this evening. People all over the world, as you know, find it difficult to make ends meet or are unemployed. And the BVI, of course, is no exception. What many persons don't know, though, is that there are programs within the Social Development Department to assist those in need. Tonight, we are going to find out all about those programs and how to access them. My special guest from the Social Development Department, Director of Social Development, Mrs. Annie Malone Fret, and Intake Officer Ginny Jacobs will give us all the information we need to access the social programs and the public assistance that comes out of the Social Development Department. But first, I have to say, and I'm very happy to report that the top story segment of Spotlight is back. And of course, we have a new reporter on the job, Ms. Peter Gay Combs, and she's going to be talking to us with us about the stories making the headlines this week. Peter Gay, welcome to the Virgin Islands, welcome to JTV, and of course, big welcome to Spotlight. We're very happy to have you. What are the big stories happening in the news this week?
Thank you, Edjuenka. As you know, there's a lot happening in the BVI, and here in the newsroom, while we're tracking a lot of stories, there are two main stories that I want to tell you about tonight. Now, first up is a story involving the issue of domestic violence or gender-based violence, as we also know it. On Monday night, a woman by the name of Lucinda Gordon was attacked by a man, a 51-year-old man by the name of Reynold Vince Peters. Now, this incident happened in the Crab Hill community in East End. We're not quite sure in terms of the details of how it all unfolded and what's the relationship between the two, but at this point it's safe to assume that there is or was some kind of relationship between Miss Gordon and Mr. Peters. Now, the JTV newsroom understands that Miss Gordon was attacked with a machete, and that machete was used to chop her all over her body, including her neck and her palm, which we understand was so severely sliced that one of her palms was severed. Now, Miss Lucinda Gordon is now in critical but stable condition, we understand, at the Peebles Hospital, while the RVIPF is searching for Mr. Reynold Vince Peters, who we understand is on the run. Now, the police is inviting members of the public to call them with information regarding the location of Mr. Peters, who they say resided in Springot and who is between 160 and 170 pounds. Now, this issue of domestic violence, Edjuenka, has been increasing in recent times in the BVI, and it's an issue that the Office of Gender Affairs has taken note of. And so this particular incident is happening at a time when the Office of Gender Affairs has launched a campaign, a 16-day campaign, which aims to sensitize islanders to not just the issue of domestic violence, which happens in the home, be it between partners or involving children or other members of the family, but gender-based violence, which encompasses all types of violence against each other, be it men and women, women against women, women against men, and men against men. Now, this 16 days of sensitization, which we'll see the Office of Gender Affairs going out into communities, speaking to persons about gender-based violence, what it is, what it involves, and conflict resolution, started last week, Friday, which was observed as International Day of Elimination for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it runs until December 10, which will be observed as International Human Rights Day. Now, the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence is being observed under the theme Peace in the Home, Peace in the World. And all of this awareness is also happening at a time when the United Nations is also leading a global campaign, one of several. And the one that we're going to take note of this year is called Orange Day. Now, what Orange Day is about raising awareness about the importance of ending violence against not just women, but children, because if you're an abused child, then you know, as an abused woman, that impacts the fabric of our society. So each and every 25th of every month for 2016, the United Nations has a range of activities worldwide which will be used to raise awareness about the need to stop violence and violence against women and girls. And so the issue of domestic violence, EduENCA, is a serious one, and the JTV Newsroom will definitely be following up on this and the happenings.
Well, Peter Gay, that is a sad story, opening up top stories this week. I happen to know both persons, and Lucinda is a good acquaintance of mine, and so I'm certainly sad to hear about that incident. But I mean, it continues to increase, and year after year, we talk about it, and we have programs and activities, and it just seems to have no end in sight. Now, I heard the director, Lara Lee Connors, the director of Gender Affairs, Lara Lee Connors, talking about men-on-men violence. Now, that's another gender-based violence that we were never focusing on before. Indeed. And certainly that's interesting, because here of late we had one young man shoot another young man, and certainly the violence in the society seems to be escalating, and we need to, I guess, pay more serious attention and allocate greater resources to having to stem that rising tide of domestic violence in our community. That certainly is an interesting story, and I agree with you. The newsroom here at JTV will really need to start paying more attention to gender-based violence in the territory. What else you have the top stories making news this week?
Well, turning in a different direction, another issue which has been making the rounds in recent times, which the newsroom began delving into in depth last week, is a new levy which is to be imposed by the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, the TRC. Now, this levy, which is called the Industrial Levy, and which will be applied annually, isn't sitting quite well with the local telecoms firms, and so they have been seeking audience with the government in the form of the Premier and the TRC to try to find some sort of resolution, a compromise, or a total withdrawal of this levy from the table. But the funny thing about this story is that this levy, though it will be a new one, isn't quite new. It has been in the works for about 9 years now, since 2006. So over the past year, the TRC, headed by its CEO, Guy Malone, who I spoke with today, said they have been sensitizing the local players to this looming imposition. And so I spoke with him today, and he explained what exactly this levy will do for the TRC.
It's a tax that we, as mandated by the Act, which the Commission needs to bring into play. It's 9 years, reason being that we've been operating there two taxes, if you may call it so, that the Commission have to get from the operator with reference to the Act, and that's the royalty, which we've been operating on, which is 3% of their gross revenue. With all that what we are doing, we find it necessary that we must now, as per what is stipulated in the operator's license and in their Act, and in the Telecoms Act, sorry, that we must implement that, because the 3% that we get as per stipulated in the Act, any surplus from that, we must turn that surplus over to the consolidated funds, which is government. In essence, with the way things going, we see the need now to bring the industry levy into play, for the mere fact that for the last 5 years you find a lot of what the regulator, the work that the regulator has been doing, the operators, not picking anyone out, has been quickly running and filing judicial reviews, which has been very expensive on the Commission. So we want to bring this forward because we prefer that the operator come and speak to us instead of take us to court. That industry levy is a tax on that the operator would pay. Each will pay a percentage because that is what it, in essence, should be running the commission, not the royalties. Yes, it's 9 years. We are not retroacting, and we realize it's a burden, a new burden on the operators. So what we are doing, we are cutting that in half. We are starting this year by only actually wanting half of what it is. Over a 3-year period is when we would then look about getting 100% with respect to what the industry levy should be. Public to understand. The commission cannot appear to be making a profit. The monies that we don't get monies from government, we get monies from all of the operators, the 4 of them. Right now we get the 3%, which is 3% royalty. We are asking for industry levy. It's about another, I would say, since I said we are cutting it in half, it's about another 3.5%. That's why we would like to, instead of just everybody just implementing, we sit down, we discuss, and we come up with something that's in the best interest of everybody, because the commission main and sole function is to ensure that consumers are happy. Consumers get the best of what is with respect to operating in a liberalized market. We have given 4 unitary license, and 3 of the 4 do mobile, and even though 3 of the 4 do mobile, it's all 4 would be have to pay a percentage of this industry levy.
Now, Ejo, the issue of why this levy wasn't implemented in 2006, I'm sure you would love to know, as are our viewers. The CEO of the TRC told me that it wasn't implemented in 2006 in order to give the consumers a break, so that they wouldn't have to come out with too much out of their pockets too soon, as well as to allow the local firms the opportunity to roll out infrastructural projects so that the infrastructure of the island for telephone services, broadband, etc. could be built out. However, the local players who I spoke with last week, they regard the move as unnecessary and excessive.
And so they don't want to play. They have been given a 9-year break, and now they don't want to pay anything at all. Well, that's interesting. I think one of the issues that's going to come to the fore when you continue to take a look at this story is going to be the service that the consumers are receiving. I know many consumers are crying out about getting value for money, paying these prices, what they consider to be high prices for telecommunication service, especially the internet and the high-speed bandwidth services, and not actually getting what they're being paid for. And certainly the public would like to know what the TRC is going to do regarding enforcement of the rules and regulations, what they're going to do to make sure that the consumer get what they pay for. Those are going to be some of the questions coming up, but has already come up in the air and in the community, and certainly the community is going to need answers for those questions. Did any of the telecommunications providers give a reason why they think that they shouldn't pay a levy for using the public's air and the public spectrum to make a profit?
Well, essentially the collective voice is that they are already paying this 3% annual fee, which is a royalty fee. So they pay that already. And then now, to add this, it's gonna take away from monies that they would have set aside or that they would put into their budget, you know, to roll out new programs, especially the big projects. So they're of the view that this will detract from that. And not only that, but if this new industrial levy is imposed, then they will have to pass that on to their customers, and there might be some kind of a backlash. So that's what they're saying from their end.
Well, they have gotten a break for 9 years, and instead of having the full levy being imposed, they are getting a 50% cut. So there'll be a gradual implementation of the levy, and so I think they should be happy considering the improvement in services that we need, particularly regarding the consumers getting value for money. Interesting stories, Peter Gay, really good stuff, and we're looking forward to getting the details of the stories in JTV News coming up this week, and of course follow-ups in the weeks ahead. Thank you very much for making the top stories on Spotlight come back strong again.
Thank you, Edger Enka. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Great stuff. We're going to take a break for a word from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have, I understand, the director, Annie Malone-Fret, is here, along with Ginny Jacobs, and we are going to be talking about the Social Development Department. Many persons, as I said earlier, don't know about the many programs and public assistance that comes out of social development, and we need to know how to access those services and that assistance so that it will help us to make ends meet and to help us in times of emergencies. So keep it locked right here to Spotlight. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by CCT BVI, Life Unlimited, and the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the official Bank of Paradise.